Hello friends, welcome back to another video, or welcome to another video. It has been a while, but I am ready to get back into the groove of things, and I decided that we could do like a quick little quarter 1 catch up before I get into sharing more books that I plan on reading this year and doing some reading vlogs, which I'm really excited about. So I'm going to be talking about the books that I've read from January until March. We have 10 books to talk about, like 10 full books that I finished, and then 3 DNFs, so a total of 13 books. And to not make this video super long, we're just gonna get right into it. And I'm going to try and be brief, so some synopses might not, you might not get the full story of what the book is about, but you'll get enough. We'll start with January. Obviously I read 3 books in January, so we're getting into the reading year. The first book that I read was The Will of the Many by James Islington. This was book 1 of a epic high fantasy series, and it has like a little bit of a magic school setting, if you could call it magic school. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, magic school setting. Here we're following our main character. I think his name was Vis, and it's really interesting because he's being pulled in like 3 different directions. He's been adopted by a high-ranking official to kind of attend this magic school and figure out what happened to his dead brother, like what really happened to his dead brother. But at the same time, he's also being recruited, not recruited, but more so like blackmailed by the rebel group of this world, who's trying to rebel against the current government because they feel like, they're just not doing what needs to be done and it's unfair, so they're trying to knock him down. So he's being blackmailed by them, and he also is trying to, sorry, Stella just came in. He is also trying to kind of keep his secret identity a secret, because he is a previous prince from an old government that the current government just took down. So he's hiding in plain sight. So he's trying not to get known, trying to figure out this murder, while also trying to not let that whole secret get exposed by the rebel organization. So he's working for them as well. And I think what's interesting about this book is because Vis is being pulled in so many different directions, you don't know who to trust that he's around. He attends this magic school, and we get to meet a bunch of side characters, and you're like, are you friend or foe? I just need to know. And the thing is, you really don't know until like towards the end you start to get some sort of idea. But like throughout the entire book, he's forming these relationships, and you're just like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I really did enjoy this book. This one was really hyped. It was on lots of people's favorite books of 2023 list, and I mean, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't a new favorite. And I felt like the middle got like really confusing and really clunky, and I still don't understand the magic system. So it was good, it was great. Not loved it. I enjoyed my time reading it, but it's not like a new favorite or anything. Like I said, like the main character was all fun and well. You were rooting for him, but some of the decisions he made, you were just questioning and wanting to just strangle him a little bit for making such decisions. But they're kind of like needed in a way because of just how blackmailed he's being. And because some of the side characters fell flat for me, some of the events that happened that kind of lost their impact. So it was just, I don't know. It was fun. I enjoyed reading it, but I'm still hesitant on if I want to continue on with book 2 or not. The next book I read was Getting Schooled by, I think, Christina C. Jones. This is an adult romance where we're following a grad student, teacher's assistant, and a non-traditional student. So our hero was in the military. He's gotten discharged, so he's going back to get his bachelor's degree, and our heroine is, of course, the grad student, and they kind of form a relationship once they meet each other in that setting. And I had a really good time with this. I love the banter between the two main characters. I felt like they have very adult conversations, and when things kind of, you know, when miscommunication happened, and they were very open to communicating and trying to understand each other, and I love seeing the romance develop. I think that this is a fun, easygoing romance. One of our main characters does talk a lot about losing a parent, so content warning if you're a bit sensitive to that, but it doesn't happen in the book, but it is talked about and discussed a lot, and she talks openly about the trauma of that and how that impacts the relationship as well. But I thought it was a grown, wonderful, great time. So if you're interested in like a palate cleanser romance, I do recommend that one. So the next book I read was Faebound by Sarah L. Arifi. I'm pretty sure that's how you say the author's last name. Sorry if I'm messing that up. But I was so excited about this book. Last year I read The Final Strife and The Breaking, what is it? The Final Strife and The Battle Drum. Sorry, it's up there. The Battle Drum. 2 favorite books of last year. I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And I was so excited when I found out that she was coming out with another book. So of course I went ahead and picked it up. Here we're following 2 sisters who are elves. One sister is like a battle warrior, the other is a diviner, so she like reads prophecy and things like that. The sister that's like a soldier, yes, the soldier sister makes a mistake during a battle and she gets exiled, and the younger sister obviously is like, you're not leaving without me, so she tracks her sister down and they kind of are in exile together for a bit, and they are captured by the Fae, which they are surprised by because Fae and the humans aren't supposed to exist in this world. It's only supposed to be the elves. So they get captured into the Fae world, and they kind of, the story goes on from there, and they're trying to figure out why the Fae exist, if the humans are there, and all this shebang. So this one took a little while to get into. The characters, particularly the younger sister, these characters are supposed to be like late 20s, early 30s. The younger sister, who's like the diviner, she read like a teenager. She read so young, and she was an incredibly frustrating character to follow. I could not stand her for a bit. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It was very frustrating reading from her point of view. And also there is a bit of romance in this book as well. Like the 2 sisters have their own separate romances, and there's a sapphic romance. So if you're into that, I liked it. And the romances also started off a little rocky for me. I wasn't convinced that these people liked each other or that a romance was going to develop between the 2 of them, for both of the couples. But you know, the author ended up pulling through. I feel like the plot was a bit predictable but still enjoyable. The romance is also a bit predictable, but further along in the book, it got more enjoyable. So I think this is one where I really did enjoy it, especially after the end. I know that the author is going to pull through and just expand this world, and I'm excited for book 2. but getting through the first half of book 1 and just like the predictability of the book was a little frustrating, but like I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time. I think I would give this like a low 4-star, like 3.75 4 stars. I did enjoy it. I'm excited to see how the world expands. The characters and their relationships did get better. You just kind of have to stick through this one a little bit more than I would like to. So that was fun. So those are all the books I read in January. I felt like I started the year off, you know, strong. And then let's move into February, where we have our first DNF. Whew, this one, I might get a little spicy in this one because this book was so disappointing. It was so disappointing. And that is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas. This was such a huge anticipated release for me this year. It was so bad. Like I couldn't, I think I got like 350 pages in and I was like, cut the cameras. We're not doing this. I refused. I refused. Where do I begin? This was so overwritten. But you cannot convince me that this book had been edited. There's no way. No way. First, Bryce as a main character, she progressively frustrated me more and more throughout each book. First book, understood, completely understand, okay? Obviously there's going to be spoilers throughout this entire section for the first 2-3 books and the ACOTAR series as well. So if you haven't read that and you want to, you might want to skip this part, and if you haven't read it and you don't care to, buckle in. Where was I going? Bryce. I understood her motivations and her characterization in book 1. She's just gone through trauma after trauma, and you know, I get it. Book 2, I tried to understand. I understood a little bit, but she was starting to get to me in book 2 as well. But you know, I looked past it. I chose to look past it, and that was my mistake. I understand. Book 3, I wanted to punch her in the throat by page 10. Girl, oh my goodness, she has to be the most frustrating main female character Sarah J Maas has ever written. I could not understand a single one of her motivations. I didn't understand why she was acting the way she was acting. There was only one instance where I understood, and that was like when the crossover, when she was in like the ACOTAR world and she didn't trust Azriel and Nesta. And I mean, I get it, you've been betrayed several times, you're in a new place, you don't know how these people operate and things like that. But to the extent though, I don't know. Yeah, you lost me. She was such, I didn't like her. She ruined the entire book for me, honestly. Like, I DNF'd purely because of her. I could not stand it. I couldn't do it. And an interesting choice for me with the whole crossover was Sarah J Maas knowing her readers and how much we love the ACOTAR world, how much we love those characters, and how much we've invested time and emotional whatever into them, and then you have Bryce come in and just treat them like and even though I understood why she acted the way she acted, I just wish it was like reeled back a little bit, because you know, Azriel didn't deserve all that. She, like, you know, he was just trying to help protect his family, I guess. Nesta, I'm not a Nesta fan, so we're just but that was confusing. I didn't get that. I also didn't understand with like the whole crossover at the end of book 2, she met Reese and I'm pretty sure Farah in the beginning, and then we saw Reese for all of 5 pages and he never returned. We were basically following Azriel, Nesta, and Bryce. So what was the point of introducing Reese? A little fishy to me. Seems like a cash grab. My other problem, besides Bryce, was the point of view changes. Girl, you would have about 5 point of views in one chapter. I'm a bit exaggerating, just a tiny bit, but it felt like it. It felt like it. I felt like I was getting whiplash. You would be in Hunt's point of view, then Rune's, then back to the Akatar world for Bryce, and then you would be following the Hind, and then Ethan, and then Therian. Is that even the merman's name? Therian, sure, and Ethan, ooh. Ethan should have died. And then another thing that I wrote in my notes, the crossover info dump, that was a choice. That was a terrible choice. So Bryce is trying to figure out like how this world connects to where her friends and homeboy is, and they somehow find a hologram of one of the dead sisters of I don't even know. And this hologram basically explains everything. Everything's just, I'm talking pages and pages and pages of this hologram telling us, like laying it out, just, and this happened, and then this happened, and then this. There had to have been a better way to get that done. There had to have been. Anyways, I just wasn't impressed by this book. I'm so glad I DNF'd after looking at other vlogs, reviews. I didn't miss much. Bryce just got more frustrating. The Bryce and Hunt relationship developed absolutely terribly. And the other characters didn't really do much either. The Hind and Rune, probably, their backs probably hurt from carrying this entire book. And they need a break. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But on to better and bigger things. I ended up reading the Prison Healer series next, which I think the first book is the Prison Healer, second book the Gilded Cage, and the third one I forgot, but I'll put the picture up. This series redeemed it for me. This is a YA fantasy series. I have been out of my YA bag for a while, but this one just plopped me right back in. This was fantastic. I loved it. I binged it in like 2 weeks. So we're following Kiva, who's been in this death prison essentially for about 10 years, and then one day the rebel queen is captured, brought into the prison with a secret note for Kiva to keep her alive, because the rebels were about to pop in there and break her out. So Kiva is then forced to kind of take on the queen's place in these elemental trials where no one has ever survived, and she doesn't have elemental magic. So that's basically the entire plot of book 1. But baby, when I tell you, this series just expands. It just gets better. The found family, the romance, I loved it. I loved it. I loved the side characters. I understood the motivations. Kiva pissed me off in book 2 just a tiny bit, but the side characters, you know, they bought it up. They held it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I loved how the world expanded from book 2 to book 3, how we saw the different sides of, like, between the rebels and the now ruling government, and just, I think, like, hands down, the series is going to make it into the top books of 2024 for me. I just loved it that much, and I highly recommend you read it. And the last book I read in February was The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This was my first book by this author, and it was okay. It was good. I enjoyed it, but like I wasn't like over the moon impressed and like live laugh love it. So this is a murder mystery fantasy book, which I thought was pretty cool. I love that like mashup of genres. And we're following in an assistant investigator, Din, and he is solving the strange murder of a high-ranking official who was found dead by like a tree growing through his body. And I think what worked for me in this book was the characters. I loved Din, following Din as a character, and I also loved the head investigator, Anna. She is so eclectic, she is strange, she says what's on her mind and just doesn't care how people see her and how she's like viewed, and she added a certain humor and lightness to the story, which I personally really enjoyed. So I think the characters were definitely a strong point in this book, but the plot lost me, and I think it was because I felt like it went on a bit too long. And this is a problem I feel like I have with murder mysteries in general. It give me one or two plot twists, baby, let's wrap it up. I have a very like thriller reading mindset when it comes to mysteries. I think that's the problem that I'm having, but I just felt like every time it was figure something out, then it exposes something else, and then it exposes something else and something else and something else, and it's just like you knew the characters would be fine because they had something else to figure out. And the stakes weren't high enough for me, and I just found myself like skimming some parts, like, okay baby, let's speed it up, let's wrap it up, who's the killer? So that was, I think, my main problem with this book. But based on how it ended, I think I will read book 2 because I want to see exactly how this world expands and the implications of how this mystery kind of leads to the next one, and I feel like it's going to be a bit like different. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be back with Anna and Din. So that was fun. Just went on a bit too long for my personal taste. So those are all the books I read in February, and now let's go into March. We're making great time. The first book that I read in March was The Measure, and I don't remember who this is by, but this is, I want to say, literary fiction. Like it felt like I was reading a lit fic book, but this was so interesting, and I enjoyed it. I'm like, I know it sounds like I'm questioning if I enjoyed it, but it was just different, and I really like that. So one day everybody mysteriously gets a box at their doorstep, and in this box is a string, and they start to realize that this string, I think it either symbolizes how long they're going to live or how much longer they have to live. Like, I think it symbolizes like how long their life will be or how long they have left to live. I don't remember which one. So that in and of itself just throws the world on its side. Everybody's in a frenzy, and in this book we are following, I think, 8 different characters and following how this string has impacted, changed their life, their views, their relationships. And I think what I really enjoyed about this book was how introspective it made me of, okay, if you knew exactly how long you had to live, and if you got a short string or a long string, what different decisions would you make? How would it affect your current relationships? And just like, what would you do different? And also, would you even look in the box? Or is it just better to not know and live life not knowing? And I love that concept. I love that it made me think of things like that and answer those questions. And I loved also that we got to see different scenarios on how it impacted our 8 characters that we're following, their relationships and things like that. I also loved that this book just didn't focus on the individual. It focused on everyone and how this phenomenon would impact politics and how it would impact like the military, how it would affect crime, and medical care was a big one. And it's just like things you think about but you don't think about in that context, and I thought it was freaking cool. I'm sorry, maybe some people are just gonna be like, okay, yeah, it was just, you know, a vibey book, but it made me really introspective and I really enjoyed it. So if you want to read that book, I really recommend that one. That one's a good one. Then I read my first Mariana Zapata book. I read All Roads Lead Here. I've heard like she's the queen of a slow burn romance, but I didn't care a lot. And I know this is a lot of people's favorites, but the slow burn was a bit too slow. And I really didn't vibe with the main character. We're following, forgot her name, moves back to the small town that she was raised in, and she kind of is just gone from a very toxic relationship breakup, and she's going back to that small town to kind of, you know, find herself, recenter herself, figure out what she wants from life, what she's doing. And she rents an apartment, like an above a garage apartment, but the owner of the apartment has a young son, and the young son was the one who ended up renting it out for her, so the dad like didn't know anything. But he allows her to stay in the apartment because he feels bad for something or another. So we're just following their relationship and also like her healing journey and how she connects back to her mom and how being in this small town kind of heals her and things like that. It was okay. Like I had a good time. I finished it, but it was just like I didn't feel like super connected to the romance and the characters. I just thought it was like a cute time. But don't take my word for it. This is a lot of people's favorites, but I just wasn't impressed. And I don't know what other Mariana Zapata book I should read next. If like this wasn't, you know, if I didn't like it and everybody else did, I'm just like a little hesitant, but we'll see. Next I read Pulling Doubles, which is book 2 in the Wright Brothers series by Christina C. Jones. This one we are following a nurse practitioner and an OB guy nurse and their romance. This was fun, good time. Not really much to say on it. It's a great palate cleanser. I liked it just as much as I liked book 1, which was Getting Schooled. And it was fun. I love the brothers. I think they're very fun. I love their family relationship that we get to see develop between book 1 and book 2. And yeah, it was a super cute romance and I recommend that one as well. Next I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is like supposed to be like a fairy tale-esque writing book. Super popular, and I thought it was okay. I didn't care for whatever Jax is. Jax is like a fate or whatever. Didn't really care for him. Evangeline was the main character we're following. Didn't care much about her either. And it was just okay. But I was looking at reviews and people were like, okay, book 1 was okay. And book 2 is really where, you know, you start to fall in love with the characters and all that stuff. I DNF'd The Ballad of Never After. That was book 2. Couldn't do it. Could not do it. I did not care. You cannot pay me enough to care about these characters and that plot. Not for me. Didn't like the writing, didn't like the main characters, didn't care about the romance, whatever that was. Not for me. Then I had another DNF. March was rough. Let me tell you something. 2024, I am not afraid of DNFing these books. I'm not about to waste my time. So the next DNF was Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. I was really excited about this one because I heard so many good things. We're following a thief who goes on like this highly dangerous mission and retrieves something that kind of has like a hit put on her back essentially, and she realizes that lots of people are after her to kill her for such thing that she stole. So she's on the run and she partners with some unlikely people, let's just say that, and they are trying to figure out who created this thing, who wants it, and why they want them dead. I was really into this at first. I was enjoying it. I loved the main character. I felt like the plot was moving pretty quickly, and it was just a great old time. And then it just got super repetitive. It was repetitive. I found myself not caring again at all, and it just seems like too much was happening, but nothing at the same, like absolutely nothing at the same time. And I got over halfway and I was just like, I don't even want to finish it. I don't want to finish it. So I looked on Reddit, looked at the ending, not continuing on with the series is what I'll say. And then the last book that I read in the month of March was The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. This is the author's, I think it's his debut work, the one that wrote The Will of the Many. So since I read that and I liked the writing and like the plot for the most part, I was like, you know what, let me give it a try. And so I did, and I will say I really enjoyed this one a lot more. I do have a reading vlog where I vlogged the entire process of me reading this book, where I share more about what it's about and my thoughts in that. But overall, that reading vlog will be up next after this video. But overall, I will say I really enjoyed this one a lot more, and I am planning to continue on with books 2 and 3. So those are all the books that I've read so far this year. I mean, April's almost over, so of course I've read some more books, but that'll be in a later wrap up. And now we are all caught up essentially. So those are my quarter 1 books, and I will say it's been a pretty successful reading year so far. Like I said, I'm not being scared to DNF books this year. My time is important, my time is valuable, and I'm just not gonna, you know, invest all that time in something I'm not enjoying. And reading is a hobby that's meant to be enjoyed. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite books of 2024 so far is and your least favorite down in the comments. As always, thank you all so much for watching and sticking around if you have. And I'll see you guys with another video soon. Bye.